Hi, Internet. It's Peg Fitzpatrick with my book club, and I am really excited today to bring to you Jon Acuff, author of Do Over. I totally love this book, and I fell in love with it because I saw this really cool trailer that John did. So I'm super excited to dive right in and talk to this New York Times best-selling, 6 times author, and we are totally going to dispel all your career problems and probably solve like every question you have in the next 30 minutes.
That's a high bar, Peg. I usually like a lower bar that I can jump. Like he's written some books, some are okay. Here we go.
Well, I see Waldo, so I'm already winning. I found Waldo already.
Yeah, right. Yeah, look at that.
So isn't that a win? Like, isn't that something we all search for?
Yeah, start
Waldo?
the day with a win. Yeah.
I think the little wins make up all the big wins, don't you? Like celebrating the
Well,
little
I think
things.
we fictionalize big wins as if
Yeah.
one single win will change everything. We all want to be discovered. Like we want to write one blog post that goes viral, and for the rest of your life, it's different. But that's just not how it works. Like anybody who has long-term success will say there wasn't this one single thing.
Exactly. And I just read that on your blog a half hour ago. You said slow success leads to long success.
Yeah,
There
it's
is
not
no
fun.
overnight button, right?
No, I think about that. I studied journalism for 4 years in college, and then I've been
Mm-hmm.
writing full time for the last 17 years. So I've
Mm-hmm.
been writing for 21 years. And so that's never fun to talk about. On the internet, we love to sell like the short kind of message where it's like,
Yeah.
if you download my free PDF, you'll be an instant amazing person in 1 hour. And I'm not trying to trick you to get your email address.
At
And then you
all.
try it and you go, this is nonsense. And so, yeah, I think I'm learning, the older I get, the more I realize the value of things like limits, that I can't do it all and be good at it all.
Mm.
And culture sometimes tells you that. Like, here's what I think. There's somebody I know in the media, and he was really good at writing like really amazing blog posts, like changed the game in a certain area of culture. And it
Yeah.
probably took him 40 hours a week to do it. So then he
Yeah.
got successful. So then he got to
Mhm.
do other stuff. And what I've learned is the more successful you get at doing something, the more invitations you get to not do it. And so now they said, hey, why don't you do a podcast? And that takes a couple hours away. And they go, why don't you do some documentaries? And that takes some hours away. Why don't you be on TV? And that takes some hours away. And the hubris is thinking that what took you 40 hours to create can now be created in 10 hours and be as good. It can't. So
Right.
something is going to suck. And so like I really like the older I get, the more I go, there's like 3 things I can be good at. And there's a lot of sexy, shiny ego things that I would love to do, but like that's why I currently don't have a podcast. People sometimes like, you should have a podcast. And there's parts of it I would love, but I know I would write bad books if I started to add a lot of other things that prevented me from actually sitting down and writing.
I could not agree with that more. I actually work in social media and I write, and like trying to get the writing in is a challenge for me. I write
Sure.
only one blog post a week, and I have my little like Saturday morning time, and that is it. Like you won't
Yeah,
see
I'm
two
only
or
doing
three
one a
posts.
week too.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I think that's changed. Like there's some people that can do every day or multiple times a week, but I just think if you're not careful, certain types of people water it down. And
Hmm.
like for me, I'm really having a good time writing like 1 or 2 pieces a week, and they're good. I feel like they're good pieces versus I've got to write 72 times a
Right.
day and expect them all to be home runs. Like they're not going to be.
I think sometimes not listening to advice, like you have to post every day. You have to post all the time on social media. Like I post more, I'm on social media more than most people because it's my job. But
Mhm.
I never tell other people they need to do that. And bloggers, they're always like, write every day. Well, yes, you are a better writer if you write every day. That is very, very true. But you writing a book and trying to publish blog content, ooh,
Yeah. But see, to me, there's a difference between write every day and post every day. So I think
yes.
those are 2 different things. And so I look at people, because there's definitely people watching this that aren't bloggers, aren't writers, but yeah, you can do your craft every day. Like you should do your craft every day.
Mhm.
But you don't have to expose it to the world every day. That's a different thing. And so I tell people, for every hour you spend trying to promote what you're doing, spend 100 hours actually practicing what you're doing. Like
Mhm.
that's how you build long-term success. Like in your career, in your dream, whatever it is. Like, but we're such a promotional culture now. The challenge is a lot of the barriers have been removed, which is awesome. Like, it's easier to self-publish a book now than it's ever been. But that doesn't mean it's easier to write a good book. It's still every bit as difficult to write a good book. And so I meet a lot of people that go, I'm going to self-publish because it's fast, I can get it out there. And I want to go, well, you still need a really good editor. Like, you still need to spend a long time honing that message, or it's not going to be good. And so, like, that's the tension. We don't like things that take a long time, but I think good things do.
I agree. Let's talk about, like, you just mentioned being a self-promotional kind of whatever nation now. You know, as a writer, it's changed. The whole process has changed. Yes, you can self-publish or traditional publish, but it's not just about writing a book anymore. It's also like the pressure to be a speaker and to be a writer and to be on social media, to build your social media platform. That's totally different than it was in the past, where I read a story about Ernest Hemingway's life, and he said after he published his first book, what do I do next? He asked another famous author, like, what do I do now? And the guy said, go write another book. That's all there was to do.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, not that writing an Ernest Hemingway novel was any small feat. I'm not trying to say that crazy, but like, what are your thoughts on, like, being a modern author? Let's call it that, because it is much different, I think.
Yeah, I think it is different. I think the challenge is you should do the things that you feel called to do and you are good at and want to get better at. And so for me, I do like speaking. It's my second passion, though. It's not my first. Writing's my first. And so if I'm honest, I can overfill my calendar with a lot of things to avoid the thing I'm afraid to do, which is right. Like, and that's the tension. And so I can do a ton of different things and then go, oh, I would have written more if I had more time. Well, guess who controls my schedule right now? I do.
Right.
Like, I'm in control of that. So I think that's the challenge. I don't think every writer should be a speaker. In the same way that when people say to me, should everyone write a book? I say no. Like, in the same way I shouldn't record an album. Like, the book is this weird thing where people are like, well, I wrote a paper in college, so how hard can it be? It's just mostly this, where, like, you never say that with sculpting. Nobody goes, you know what I'd probably be awesome at? Sculpting. Just get a hammer, like a block of granite. How hard can sculpting be? You look at it and go, it's really hard.
Yeah.
And so I don't think everyone should feel that pressure to be a speaker. And then the other thing I think is you just start asking why. Like, we don't ask why enough. I'm going to write a blog post. This happened yesterday. I'm going to write a blog about it. We were at the American Girl doll store with my daughters. It was like 10:45 in the morning. And I was thinking, like, I took a photo of them and I was thinking, I'm going to post this on Instagram or, like, do a blog and talk about how you balance your life if you're traveling, like business travel versus home life. Like, you balance it by, look, you know, here I am at the American Girl doll store on a Wednesday at 10:45 a.m. Like, that's how you balance it. But then I started to go, why am I doing that? And the honest truth is I was doing it to make strangers think I'm a good dad. Like, that is the heart of why I was doing that.
That's like straight up. Yeah. You like that's honest.
It was just manipulation. It was, and the irony is I was missing the moment of being a dad to document it for strangers to prove I'm a good dad. So I was being a bad dad in order to create content telling you I'm a good dad. And so that's what I'm going to write about. So I think whether you're an author, whether you're a photographer, whether you're a stay-at-home mom, whatever, I think asking that question of, like, hold on a second, like, why am I doing this? So when somebody goes, you got to have 500 Amazon reviews. Why? Like, who says? Because, like, my thing is, when I go to a book and there's 400 5-star reviews, that means 400 friends. Like, congratulations. Like, that does worse. Then people see there's not any real reviews and they feel like you've gamed the system. So
unless you're, I have to say, I agree with that in a lot of cases, but Guy is really good at asking for reviews.
I'm fine asking for reviews. I just need if you stockpile 500 5-star reviews, it tells somebody who hasn't seen your book before, this isn't an honest book right now, because they haven't had real people read it and go, like, people hated The Great Gatsby. Like, every book has a 1-star review. So when I go to your site and I realize
and it's all 5-star,
all 5-star reviews.
Yes.
And like, it's not it hasn't honestly been read yet. Like, my books are going to.
We have someone. We have some 1-star.
No, but so I'll ask my audience or my tribe. I'll say, hey, if you've read it, please take 60 seconds and write an honest review. You never ask for a 5-star because that's fake. But you say, hey, if you've read it and it inspired you or it caused questions or whatever, like, write an honest review. And so it's stuff like that where I just push back on stuff where I haven't seen it change sales. So when somebody goes, once you get to 300 reviews, it changes sales. Because I'll go, well, I'm on my like 5th book and I've never seen that happen. I can't track. I can't. Maybe you have some analytics into Amazon, which is a fortress. Maybe you know the back end of Amazon. You've got a secret gate. But please tell me the analytics you're using to tell me that 200 reviews equals more sales. I'd love to hear that story. And nobody can ever tell you that.
I know. That's like the big, like, what is it? Here's a big why. What is it that sells books?
Yeah, exactly. And it's always changing.
Yes, it is. Like we did all this stuff, I did like every book that you work on. This is Art of Social Media is the first book that I wrote, but
Which I have right here. I don't know if everybody's bought it yet. Right here.
Yay. That's so nice. That makes me so happy. Did Penguin send that to you?
They totally.
Are you like a
No, actually, awesome. I think I grabbed this one. I was in the office. Every time I go to their office, I pillage. So like I just walk around like grabbing as many.
The wall in the book, and they're like, we'll send you books. You know what's really funny? When I was reading your book and you asked Adrian for advice and you were like getting book advice, I was like, I had breakfast with Adrian when I was in New York, but Guy didn't tell me. He was like, I didn't even know who he was. Like after I'm like, who do we have breakfast with? He was like, yeah, he runs Penguin. I was like, and then I'm thinking, what was I talking about? Okay, good.
He's a genius. Yeah, I asked it like every time I see him, I grill him because he's like a super genius.
That to me is the sign of a super smart person, when you know that you don't know everything and you're willing to like ask questions. People who don't ask questions when they have the opportunity to learn, crazy.
Well, it's hard because it takes humility. Like there's vulnerability in asking a question. Like it's to admit you're not perfect. It's to admit you don't know everything. And we live in a culture where like Andy Warhol saying we'll be 15 minutes famous, everybody will be famous for 50 minutes. We're in the middle of that.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this. I read Tom Peters' Brand You 50 like in 2000, and it just hit a nerve with me. And I was like, oh, okay, branding. I get that. I get the idea of personal branding. And that was because I was in advertising. But now 15 years later, everybody's in personal branding. And they might not use that phrase, but if you have a social media account, if you have Twitter, if you have Facebook, you're into branding. And so it creates this tension of what do I show? What don't I show? And so that kind of stuff's curious to me. So when culture tells you show the best stuff, always look like you have it together, then sometimes it's hard in real life to be with somebody who's knowledgeable and admit you don't have it all together. You've just practiced, if you're doing social media the wrong way, how to look like you have it all together. Like it's like being impatient. Of course we're impatient as a culture. Your phone gives you everything instantly 12 hours a day. And then you think you're going to be patient later. You practiced in your head how to be impatient for 12 hours in a row. Of course you're going to be impatient. And so like, there's a lot of tensions like that for me right now that I think are interesting.
Yeah. And like the whole needing to be entertained all the time. Like if a conversation lags for 2 seconds, the iPhone effect takes in, and one person looks down at their phone and then everyone looks down.
Everybody has permission. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of, I had friends that they ran a camp for kids and they used to hate when the kids would say, what's next? They'd have this amazing like water slide adventure with balloons and like paintball. And then like 4 seconds later, they go, what's next? What's next? And we sometimes as adults get into that same phase where it's like, oh, 4 seconds of silence. No, thank you. No, thank you.
What do we do? Wait, I'll check. The interesting thing is not that I'm like a nosy Park or anything, but if you're like in an airport or wherever, if you travel a lot, you'll notice that everybody's on their phone scrolling. Most people are just sitting there absent-mindedly scrolling through stuff. They're not talking. They're not like adding into conversations or posting. Most people are just scrolling.
Yeah, it's just the thumb. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like the greatest percentage of people are lurking and watching.
Yeah, I forget the stats on it because everybody has different stats, but it's like
I say like 80%.
Yeah, and then like commenting, and then actually that's why I've started to do meetups. Like when Do Over came out, the longer I spend online, the more I realize face-to-face still matters. And I love social media, like clearly, like it's awesome. It's how I've gotten to do so many fun things and meet so many fun people, but there's still a magic to being in the same place. And so when Do Over came out, I went around the country and did all these meetups, and they're fun because they're not book signings like traditional book signing, which is usually super humbling because like 4 people show up.
Yeah.
And then you stand by your book and like people come up to your table and like, man, I don't know, your life's work, $9, no thank you. You know,
That's
they're holding
so
like
much.
they're holding an $8 coffee and you're like, ah. And so at the meetups, I'll share ideas for like half an hour and then I give people in the crowd a chance to stand up and say what they're working on. And then the only rule is we all clap after they shared because there's so few applause moments in the rest of the day. And it becomes this really amazing moment of people going, I just lost my job after 23 years, or I just started my first blog, and they're honest because nobody had to be there. Like it's a desire-based event, not a have to attend event.
Yeah.
It's just fun. And so I love both of them, like social media, awesome, real life, awesome. I don't want to do either at the exclusion of the other.
True. I just went to LA last week and did a workshop for actors in Hollywood, which was really cool with my best friend.
Awesome.
Yeah. And they were the most incredible audience because they had eye contact every single second. Nobody was on their phone. They were all looking, listening. And like within the first 2 sentences, they were laughing at what I said. I was like, oh my God, you guys are live. I was like, yeah. And then I was like, totally
great.
Like, give me a live audience that laughs. Like,
so you were there to teach them social media?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. How fun.
Yeah.
You do that with sports stars, like athletes. Athletes really need that.
Yeah. I think a lot of big industries like that do too, but these are like budding Hollywood stars, you know, they were all out there to learn and they were the best audience. And for me, like they asked amazing, great questions, really smart questions, things that I never thought of. Like one person was saying that be careful autographing things because somebody that they knew just had identity theft from an autographed photo. How many books have you signed, John?
Do over 10,000, I think. So
okay, well,
there might be another Jon Acuff. Hopefully, he's taller, running around out there.
He's taller, maybe. I know, but it's just that's something I never would have thought of.
I never would have thought that.
I'm not going to stop signing things in my signature.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody goes to that, like my thing there is, if they're going to go to that level, they were going to do it anyway. That's like. You can have 42 locks on your house, but if a ninja is breaking in, like a ninja's coming in. Like if they're going to work through 42, like the 43rd isn't going to that's the extra ninja lock, you know? And so like, there's some degree of, I'm like, we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So note cards, let's talk about note cards and John's process for things.
Yeah, totally.
I love note cards. I love Sharpies, note cards and legal pads.
Yeah. I'm old school that way. I'm definitely, for me, I put 2 note card activities in the book. My thing is that like with books like Do Over, there's two reasons I write. I believe you're capable of more than you think, and I believe it's going to take more work than you think. And if I can get you to believe the first one, the hope, the permission to dream, that you get to do it, that it's not too late, that you're not too old or you're not too young, whatever, then I can talk to you about the second one. And the challenge is a lot of self-helpy kind of books when there's just a lot of garbage in the space will tell you the first part and it'll get you really excited, but there's no actual steps. And so then you read the book and go, it didn't take, it worked for everybody but me. Or they do the second part, the hard work, and it's boring and it's dull and there's no hope to kind of fuel you through it. And so for me, the note cards were a chance to go, let's talk specifically about relationships. Let's talk specifically about skills. And then let's have a really simple exercise that helps you go, okay, what skills do I currently have? When I ask people that question, they usually go, I don't really have any. Like I talked to a teacher the other day and he said, I've been a teacher for 30 years. I have to start over and I don't have any transferable skills. And I wanted to shake him by the shoulders and go, for 3 decades, you've taught people, like you have a ton of skills. We just have to do the archaeological digging to figure out what they are. So that's what the note cards are, is sitting down and going, okay, I have a lot more skills than I think. I've just never gone through an exercise. Or I have a lot more connections and relationships than I think. I've just never gone through the exercise. And even something like, what business owners do you know? Like a really simple way to connect with people is business owners know other business owners, especially small business owners. So the activity of going, okay, who do I know? Like I know the guy from the smoothie shop, Dan, and Dan knows everybody. He's connected to everybody. And so, you know, I'm going to put his name on a note card. And one by one, you do something like that. And inevitably what happens every time is you get encouraged because you know more people than you thought and you have more skills than you thought. And you start to see patterns and you start to see holes that you go, wow, I need to learn this skill if I'm going to be part of this industry. Like, so I've got to figure that out. So that's why I do note cards. It's just, it really simplifies it for me. And it takes what can be overwhelming, this hope or this goal, and breaks it down in small pieces.
But do you use that yourself when you're writing a book too? Do you
Oh,
start on
100%.
numbers?
I think, let me see. I think I had, oh yeah, look, I'll show you right now. I didn't plan this, so this is a little messy. Here's, this is, I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is, it said do over year on the top, and these are things that I'm working on right now. So yeah, I 100% do it.
That's awesome.
Because it's helpful to me. And then I like to draw things out, see? Yeah. Exactly.
That was when I was starting my blog.
Yep. And you still have it, and it's still accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, that was the other thing. I did something this summer. I realized I wasn't writing as much as I wanted to. And so my daughter had a reading checklist that she came home from 3rd grade with. And she had to read 1,500 minutes a summer, and she did it in 2 weeks. She crushed it because it was in 15-minute chunks. And I was like, if I want to write more or exercise more, or do yoga more or whatever, if a 3rd grader can do that, so can I. So I came up with one, and I'll show you here's my writing one. So I had a designer make me a simple chart, and it's called Do Summer. And then here's 100 boxes. And if I do it all summer, that's 25 hours of writing. And what always happens is you end up doing more. And so then I was like, well, I want to do this together. For me, that's the beauty of social media is let's do something fun together. And so I started, if you go to dosummer2015.com, you can get the checklist. And right now we have 10,000 people signed up, which equates to 15 million minutes this summer of people doing something they care about, which is 28 solid years of dreaming. So that's so you go, can you change the world with 15 million minutes? Yeah, you can. And so that's why, and people will go, well, do you really use it? Yeah, I've already, it's so funny. Here's my one for writing. Here's my one for reading.
Yeah.
Here's my one for exercise. And so yeah, I try to share the things I use in my own life that worked, and then hope they help other people. And when they do, I kind of tweak them and I work on them. So
that's awesome. To me, that's always the best. I only write about social media stuff that I've done and that I try and I really like. So the biggest gratification for me is when someone tries something that I suggested or helped them learn, and then they say, oh my God, it worked for me too. I'm like, yay.
Yeah, and it's fun when it worked in a different thing than the one you're doing. So I've already seen people post a full sheet of yoga, and mine wasn't yoga, or a full sheet of working on a small business. That wasn't mine. And so that's really fun, is when the thing, it's the mustard seed idea, something big can come from something small. And so you put something out, and then, so for me, I won't have any way to know what people do with their 15 million minutes.
Yeah.
But that's amazing. So yeah, if anybody watching wants to do it, it's just dosummer2015.com. And it's just a free PDF.
The mustard seed quote was my grandma's favorite in the Bible, by the way.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. She had the little necklace with the little mustard seed.
Oh, that's awesome. I think that for me is what social media is, where you be brave and sit down and share something, and you really, if you're honest, don't know what's going to happen with it. So I remember getting emails from my first kind of blog that took off from people in jail that were reading the post in jail as a small group conversation piece.
Wow.
And there's no way that I was in Atlanta going, what do people on Cell Block D outside of Portland, Oregon need to know today? I didn't know that, but you share it, and then because of the connections, it can go anywhere.
Yeah, it's true. So I was going to segue over to, which is a good one for what you just said. You have a quote: regret has a longer shelf life than fear. Face the fear of today instead of the regret forever. And that, it is scary for people to start something new. So, they can go do your checklist, but do you have any, maybe you already answered that whole question.
No, I don't think I've answered that. I mean, I think the things you have to understand are, you are going to hear it's too late, or you should have started earlier. If you're 42, I just saw a tweet from somebody that said, that's watching, it said, I thought I'm past my prime, or if you're 50, yeah, exactly. It's never too late to try something new. And so, but there's a handful of kind of voices and fears you're going to experience. So just get ready for them. I think another thing, the older I get, the more I realize I need community and I need relationship, because there's sometimes we're so close to the painting, we can't even tell what it looks like. And so I need other people that will go, because even just saying, sometimes I'll talk to people about this and they'll go, I would do something, but I don't even know what I want to do. And I think in situations like that, they're looking for something perfect. Like, that's the problem. I don't believe in the whole, like, find your perfect purpose and you have one, and like the soulmate kind of version. Like, you're going to fall in love with one person that might be in Argentina. And if you never get to Argentina, you'll never know love. Like, that's garbage. And so I tell people, like, well, ask your friends. I guarantee the people that know you, if you said to them, hey, what do you think I'm good at or passionate about or interested in? They'll go, this thing. Like, you always talk about it. Every job, you've always tried to do this. And you go, oh, that's just something I like to do. And they go, no, that's your thing. And so I'm a big believer in, stuff like that. And then as far as like fear versus regret, yeah, they're not the same thing. Like, fear is intense and it's big, but regret is slow and long, and it just kind of haunts you. And so for me, there's been a number of moments in my life where there was an easier thing to do that would cause me less fear, but it would cause me more regret. And I knew in the long term, and I've made the wrong decision before. I've had a couple of big decisions where I knew the right thing to do and I didn't do them. And I just got bitter. Like, on the other side of that, I got angry and bitter, and it became toxic, and I eventually had to do the right thing. And I wish I had done the right thing to start with, because I had all this regret. But the challenge is that it's easier for people to sit on the sidelines and say, I could have really written a book if I wanted to. Like, that gives you like 20% of the feeling of writing a book, and it feels safe. So apathy comes in and goes, don't risk, because what if you try and you're not good at it? Or what if you try and it's not what you thought it would be? It's better to lie to yourself and go, oh man, if I wasn't so busy, or someday, or I really could have if I wanted to, versus actually trying and maybe it doesn't go the way you think it's going to go. And here's the thing, like, your first book won't be your best book. Like, it won't. You're going to get better.
That's good, because then my next one will be even better.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so like, you have to know that going in, that like, give yourself permission to be, okay at things you haven't done before. And the problem is, like, when people change their lives, is that they spend 10 years being an accountant. And then they go, I'm going to try something new. And they try that new thing for a month, and they compare it to the 10 years that it took them to get good at being an accountant. And they go, see, I'm not good at this other thing. I was better at being an accountant. And we always forget, it took you a decade to get good. You're comparing the first month of data or the first 6 months against something that took you a decade. Of course you can't compare those two things. Like, give yourself some time, give yourself some room to get better. So things like that get me fired up.
People really are afraid of change. Like, just the whole concept of change, doing something new. Like,
I hate it.
Really? I love it. I have to tell you, I love it.
That's awesome. I wish I was like you. I'm not. I hate it. Like, I won't go to restaurants if I don't know the parking situation. Like, if my wife is like, let's go to that new restaurant, I'm like, whoa. Are we talking street parking? Is there a lot? Is there a valet? Like, and it's just because I know a handful of restaurants and I know how to park there. And so, like, we laugh at that, but that's indicative of so many other things in my life where I just have to do them. Like, I love change. I don't. I hate it.
I'm totally up for change. When I was a senior in high school, I moved and went to a different high school.
Yeah, why not? That sounds terrible to me.
I loved it.
I wouldn't know where to park.
I rolled in, I auditioned for the play, and I got the lead.
That's a great high school moment.
See, I know, but I mean, most people would be afraid to do that.
No, I have to force myself. I do change. Like, I work on that, but it is with gritted teeth. Like, I wrote in Do Over, there's a whole section about grit, which is like being stubborn in the face of fear. It's not getting rid of the fear. It's just being stubborn and being like, no, I'm doing this anyway. So there's a lot of things that, I don't know. It's fun to play confident on the internet, but like, I'm doing them and I'm scared out of my mind. And
I'm totally confident, so I tone myself down.
Well, I can't wait for bravery to show up. Like, I just got to do it anyway. And and I swing between those poles of like being terrified and being like, I'm going to kill this. I'm going to crush this opportunity. But it goes back and forth.
Yeah. Well, wow.
Is that
interesting?
I read your PDF and turned my phone down. Interesting.
That's my regular phone. I should follow my own.
It's probably Guy Kawasaki calling.
It actually is. Look. Can you see that?
That's hilarious.
I'll have to call him.
You're on the internet right now. And
I
then they're
know.
like, why aren't you watching this Google Hangout?
He has like radar when I'm doing something. He's like, she's probably doing something else. I should probably call her and ask her something. Anyway, I should totally be respectful of your time because we are at the 11:30 mark. I loved this conversation, John. I feel like you're like my new BFF. I hope that's okay. But
I think I'm not good at I'm supposed to really push this. So like,
well, I
go
was
get
just
the
gonna
book.
push it again. Yeah.
I'm not good at authoring. As far as like, well, that reminds me, Peg,
really
of a
good at
thing. It
authoring.
reminds me of something I wrote in here. Like, you're supposed to be all subtle and be like, it's funny you say that because on page 37. So I hope people check out the book. I love watching what you do. Again, I am reading your book right now. I think that everybody needs to read it.
Like
Social media.
High five. It's a book high five.
Yeah, like social media is confusing and ever changing, and so I love that you're telling honest tips. I think there's a lot of kind of like shiny, empty stuff, and your book isn't that. I love that because I think in a world of like clutter and like clamoring, it's great to have something that's actually good.
That's awesome. Well, the best part of book club for me is talking to authors like you who that I learn from. So I've learned a ton from you. I love your book. I love watching what you do and seeing how you network because everybody does things a little differently, which makes it awesome.
Okay, so last question for me.
Yes.
I'm 3 months into the launch of Do Over.
Yes.
You as a social media person, what's one thing you learned in the launch of your book? Or one thing that on the outside you'd go, you know what? I think you should try blank.
Okay, so I can't say that I've gone through every single launch thing you did, but when you get to that 3-month part into your launch, you're kind of like through all the amazing things that took you months and months to prepare, right? Mm-hmm. So you got ready for the launch, you did all this stuff. That's kind of where we are too. We're like, okay, now what? I'm going to start over and redo some things that I wish I did more. Like, I wish I did more infographics. We did one that did really well. Infographics are amazing. You can load them on SlideShare and then embed them everywhere. People pin them like crazy.
Huh, so, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. We didn't do any.
Okay, well, let me just tell you, our Penguin did ours.
Really? Well, after this hangout, I'll call Penguin and be like, hello.
Why didn't I get a hit? Yeah, well, it was interesting.
Every author does. They call their publisher after they see another author do, and they go, hey, I want some of that mojo.
Why didn't I have that? Well, yeah, actually, your book trailer is how I found you.
Oh, awesome. They did a good job with that.
Yeah. Now, did they do the whole production of that for you?
We had we hired an outside agency out of New York. I think it was called Meerkat was their name, like not to be confused with Meerkat.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did a great job. So I worked on the script with them. I used to write a lot of videos and freelance. Yeah. And they animated it. So yeah, that team did an amazing job.
So that's how I found you. But so that I would do infographics. If you didn't do an infographic,
did not.
So awesome. I'll send you a link to our Art of Social one. I loved it, but I would do more. For Art of the Start, here was my challenge. We had Art of Social Media in December, and then Art of the Start 2 launched in March.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, that was hard. So if you think 1 is hard, try 2.
Yeah. I've never done that. And then you're also doing blogging and social media in the midst of all that. Yeah.
Don't ever do so close. Never. It was the worst. It was the worst. So anyway, I would do infographics. Infographics are really popular, and it's like an easy way for people to get a bunch of tips. So 10 tips.
Awesome. I have we've done some like graphics, but never one kind of collected like infographic conversation. So that's really fascinating. I'll have to try that out.
Yeah. So, and then I think I would go back and do some more, like we did power tips. Like I did power tip Pinterest pins and things like that. So I think I'm going to actually look at some of the things I did early on and then redo them. I saw your Post-it note idea for your book. I loved that. The little like Post-it.
Oh yeah. We created like 80 of those. So we're going to do like one a week for the next
100 years.
Exactly. So, and those are fun, and they're easy. So stuff like that with Instagram is interesting to me. But it's always changing. Like I'm experimenting with Periscope right now. Like that's been
everybody's experimenting with Periscope right now. I toyed briefly with Periscoping this, but I was like, it's a hangout, so why bother?
Yeah. They're like, yeah, exactly.
So what are you doing on Periscope?
I'll do, hey, at 11 o'clock, I'll be answering questions about writing, public speaking, dream chasing. So I'll definitely give people a heads up because, Twitter, Facebook, everything, you can miss it. Like what I've learned is when I go to a city and do a meetup, I will feel like I have tweeted it and proclaimed it a million times. And inevitably when I post the photo, somebody goes, oh, I wish I had known.
I know.
And so that's the tension. So with Periscope, I give people a heads up, like, hey, at 11 o'clock, we're going to be talking about this. Yep. And I try to set the conversation with a couple of topics.
Yep.
And then I'll answer questions about writing or things that I feel like I've had some experience in. And then I won't answer questions I don't know anything about. So if somebody says, how do you find a good illustrator for a children's book? I go, no idea. Like I just haven't, because there's a temptation when people label you as an expert to think like, just because someone asks you something doesn't mean you should answer it if you don't have good information. So try to refer people.
I never answer anything I don't know. I am the first. If I don't know, I say I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But if I know, I share.
But I'll do that, and then with like do summer, like I think I have it in here somewhere. I had a sheet of paper that said do summer 2015, and I'd hold it up and be like, this is what we're doing. And oh yeah. So that's what I'll do. Like I'll go like, hey, remember, here's the URL, which you think like that's really old school. Like it's Sharpie on paper, how old school. But it gives people a chance to go like, oh yeah, that's the actual thing. Like, let me check it out. The thing with Periscope is that it doesn't last. So it's so so I try not to spend a ton of time preparing for it and make it live and kind of honest. And then I've started to do a lot more Facebook videos, which I've really seen good traction with.
Yeah.
Recording them right to Facebook.
They're amazing. Facebook native videos are the best.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned the podcast because my friend Jeff C, who's watching this, keeps telling me you should do a podcast. And I was like, Jeff, I don't think I'm going to do a podcast. He's like, come on.
If I ever did one, I would do it as a season. Like I'm really fascinated about the idea of seasonality where you don't, the problem to me with social media is you go, I'm starting a blog forever, like until I die. Like there's no, and nothing else runs like that. Like football has a season, TV shows have a season, and so if I did a podcast, I would do an 8-episode season where I talk to like 8 people I'm curious about. And then I would take a hiatus and then I do another 8 episodes because I'm not looking for one more thing to do in an average way, But I can sit down and batch it. So
we did that for art of social media too. We did Power Users Hangout series. Because it's the same with the weekly hangout series. I do book club monthly because I try to do like a traditional book club, like a 30-day, like let's read a book and everybody can read the book and we'll talk about the book. But what I found was that people on the internet just wanted me to read the book and talk about the book. So I did that instead.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I only do it once a month. So it's actually.
So that should be a question you ask anybody in social media. Like that'd be interesting to say, what was something you thought would go one way and didn't go that way, and what did you learn? Because I think social media is rife with that, where you have this idea of like, this will do this, and then it goes like the exact opposite, and you go, all right. Well,
but I learned that one the first month that I was like, okay, so did everybody read the book? And everybody was like, no, we didn't read the book. And I was like, all right, well, I read the book and I have notes. So it actually turned out to be author interviews instead, which I love so much more.
That's awesome. I love that you were able to see that and respond to it. So, well, this has been a blast.
Yeah.
I love it.
It
was fun to get to know you. Hooray for Penguin Portfolio Authors. We need to stick together. Tell Guy I said hello.
I will.
We don't know each other. But people with the first name Guy in my book are generally pretty awesome. So I'm a big fan of that name and love his stuff. And so glad you guys partnered together on this book and excited to keep reading it.
Yeah, it was super fun to talk with you. So I will tune off for book club this month and we'll see everybody next month.
All right. See you, Peg.
Bye.